welcome back.
To three-way call.
With Britt Fallon Star. Well, today we're doing a wellness topic. We're going to talk about fibroids and your shared experiences with fibroid symptoms and kind of just some takeaways for the listeners today about how to, one, recognize those things and potentially just start to make some lifestyle changes to minimize those symptoms, reverse those symptoms, and just yeah, feel better a little, hopefully. But it'll be a prolonged series because they are a little bit more in depth. So touching on the symptoms and some things to take away today would be great. But we will, I want to make sure everyone knows that we will get into it a little bit more as the episodes go on.
Yeah, thank you for that intro, Britt, 1000%. And I really wanted to touch on this today because Britt has been so helpful with me in my recent, I'd say within the last year, fibroid diagnosis and just really trying to figure out like with foods, okay, I can adjust and monitor and do as much as I can, but she's been so helpful with the products I'm using and the fragrances and the lotions and all these things I never really considered until my girl told me. So I wanted to dive in and see who else we could help as well.
Yeah, so I'd love to first talk about like the symptoms that kind of came up for you, for both of you. If you can touch on how you guys figured it out. What was your path to diagnosis of fibroids and what symptoms were prevalent for you guys so that the listeners can kind of know what to look out for.
Yeah, definitely. So I have fibroids and I also have endometriosis. I found this out unexpectedly 2 years ago. Um, I will say I was just going in for a routine pap. So, ladies, another reason to get your pap smear. I went in for a routine pap and the doctor was doing her thing and she said that my uterus felt really enlarged, and so she asked me if I had gone to the restroom. I'm like, I literally just went. I don't know why my bladder would be so huge. And she's like, okay, I just want to double check, so let's just take a step forward and get you an ultrasound. So I ended up getting an ultrasound, found out that what she was feeling was not my bladder. She was actually feeling my ovary. It was the size of like almost a grapefruit. She's like, I don't even know how you're functioning, but you should be in so much pain. And honestly, I wasn't ever really in pain. And part of me thinks, I think my body was so used to it
Mm,
that for me, it
Mm,
wasn't pain. It was just another
your day
way
to
to
day.
live, as crazy as
mhm.
that sounds. And then so she ended up saying that I do have endometriosis. I had two cysts on my ovaries as well as fibroids. She said I need an emergency surgery for my ovary to remove those cysts. And she said that she could probably just leave the fibroids alone because in the ultrasound, they actually looked really tiny. So that wasn't really a concern. So fast forward to my endo surgery, they remove the cysts and they look at the fibroids on my uterus, and they're actually way bigger
Oh my
than what the ultrasound was showing. So that's another thing, just in case, another thing to think about. And so they actually ended up removing those fibroids off my uterus.
God.
Um, and that's how that went. And then immediately, say 3 or 4 months after my surgery, everything came back.
Oh my
So
gosh, yeah, that's
even if
right.
you get the
Mm-hmm.
surgery, that doesn't mean that you're in the clear. They told me even if they have the smallest cells of any of that, that it can duplicate all over again. So that's
Mm-hmm.
why diet and all the things that Britt's going to be covering is really important to help with those as well.
Yeah, and I think what you said about just thinking that was your normal is so relatable because we get used
Yes.
to dealing with these pains that Britt always tells me is not normal, especially for me in my cycle. And it's like, well, it's because some doctors will really tell you just take some ibuprofen. Like, you can take up to like 4, 8 or something, And I'm like,
Ridiculous.
okay, got it.
Yeah, that it's always chalked up to like, you're a woman, you got to deal with it. This is normal. You're supposed to be in pain. And it's so wrong. It's not accurate at all, especially for fibroids and endometriosis. The pain Like the fact that you were living day to day with that kind of pain and just thinking that's normal just goes to show like how jacked up that like societal thought process is because that pain is some of the most unbearable if you're having pain from endometriosis or fibroids. Like people are passing out from pain, they're nauseous from pain, they're throwing up, they're literally feeling so sick they can't go to work. It's debilitating. And to just think that that's okay is unacceptable.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Grinds my gears a little bit if you can't tell. To start, what about you? Like, what were some symptoms that you noticed that kind of drew you to like want to check this out?
Yeah, actually, very similar to Fowl. I just went in for my annual PAPs, so highly, highly recommend. And my doctor, she was like, feeling a little something extra over here. I'm like, really? So she sent me to get an ultrasound, and I remember going to the ultrasound. I was actually crying. I was like, what is going on? Like, what is wrong with me? Because I already knew that Black women were, I think, something like 80, 90% more likely to get fibroids. But I didn't actually know that until late into my 30s. And then one of my clients has had her fibroids removed. And so, really working with her through diet and workout, through all of that. So, my brain just automatically kind of went to, well, when's the surgery? Like, what are we doing about this?
Do
And
this.
let's go ahead and schedule it. But my doctor did say, like, they were small enough to where we could kind of just like live with them. But again, my cycle has always, from the time I was 15, every month, just like feeling like the worst. I'm having to take so much over the counter medicine. And these days, it's seeming to be just getting longer and longer. So a couple months ago, my cycle, the actual cramping was starting about 5 days early, and now it's up to about two
Mm,
weeks early. So I feel like it's
mm,
getting worse and worse, even though like Val was saying, the ultrasound told me, because I went in for a second one, they're getting smaller. But it's almost that time of year where we're going to go back in now in the next couple of months and really get another look because something's going on with me right now. So we'll see. We'll see. It's an ongoing
yeah.
process, but I think for me, symptoms mainly just pain, and then doctor, she found him. So thankful for her.
Yeah. So just curious when you guys discussed pain and if you can think back to it, how severe was the pain on a scale of 1 to 10? We're talking. So, because, just natural periods, a lot of women deal with painful periods without fibroids and endometriosis. So I do want to make sure that there's a differential aspect to this
Yeah.
in rating your pain because while we all have different thresholds, right, there is still a pretty significant difference in the pain severity. So if you could just put a number on it or a expression on it, what are we talking?
I'd say for me, usually a 9 or 10 out of 10. I do have to stop working. I've tried all the checks. I'll never forget when Fallon, like 5 years ago, told me she had a heating pad. I was like, they make heating pads for this? So I ordered a heating pad. I am sometimes on my back with my legs up to the ground, like trying to just get some, what is that even? Like, I don't know, momentum. I'm trying all the tricks. I'm hot showers now. But my doctor did say if I could try to catch it as soon as I feel it, whereas before I was just kind of like, let me see if they get bad enough to where I need it. I'm just like, I feel a little something. I am taking some medicine. So
Mhm.
it doesn't get to that 10 out of 10.
Yeah, for me, I wouldn't say 10 out of 10. I also have a really high pain tolerance. So when
Mm.
the doctor was telling me, like, I shouldn't even be out functioning, like, I should be in bed, like, dying of pain, and I was just, like, living life. I think if I think back, I want to say, like, maybe like a 7 or 8 at most. But what I will say is, I only experience the pain when I am on my cycle. And during that time when all of that was happening, I did stop my birth control. And
Mm,
so all of that was happening too. So I was thinking, since my periods were so painful being off birth control, that that was the reason why. And I mean, that could definitely be also another aspect of it. But I think because I was on birth control for so long and we were told, that a lot of people who have really bad cramps, they'll take birth control and that kind of helps like suppress their cramps. So
Yeah.
I'm thinking I got off my birth control And I'm having all these painful periods that I never experienced because of me being on birth control. And and then come to find out I had endo and the fibroids, and another thing, it's like you don't ever really know when that started. It's kind of hard to pinpoint. You can't be like, on this day, on this time, I, you know,
Mm-hmm.
developed endometriosis and fibroids. So it's kind of thinking back, was it the birth control? Was it not? Was it a little bit of that, a little bit of this? I was also going through a really toxic time in my life. So I know that definitely was a main factor as well.
Yeah, the stress
Yeah.
too. And
Hmm.
yeah, my doctors have recommended birth control, but your girl has never wanted that extra weight gain. I'm like, I cannot afford any of this with my competitions. No. So that's not even an option.
Yeah. Um, I don't want to open the can of worms on birth control at the moment.
Another girl, another time
But
we will.
I will definitely dive into that. Okay, so just I want to touch just a, base on a few more symptoms that can occur. Fibroids can actually be asymptomatic, so you can live with them and not know um, until you know, right? Like sometimes they're
Yeah.
asymptomatic and you don't know until you have trouble getting pregnant or pregnancy issues, right? Like so you can have asymptomatic fibroids. They can also be the size of a pea or up to the size of a grapefruit. They can be drastically huge, which can also, like, the bigger they are, the more distension your abdomen can get, some excess, like that bloating look, that kind of just, you're feeling a little fluffy. The heavy, prolonged periods is huge to look forward to. So that can mean anything from having a very heavy period day to day and also past that 7 day period. So if you're bleeding for an excessively long amount of time and you're bleeding excessively, period, then that's a sign too. And that can also like cause anemia, fatigue because of the amount of blood loss. And this kind of crosses over with endometriosis as well, by the way. So these are like hallmark symptoms of both the severe menstrual cramps for sure, pelvic pressure. This can also cause issues like pelvic floor issues and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Fallon thought, or they talked about your bladder, right, Fallon?
Hmm.
Because it can actually cause constipation and urinary incontinence.
Mm,
So you can have some inflammation in those spaces as well, low back pain. Um, Also, you can have pain not on your period, like you could have it other times, especially because fibroids have progesterone and estrogen receptors.
mm,
So, if there's fluctuations in your hormones, it can cause exacerbation of symptoms and of growth of the fibroids. And then just pregnancy complications and pregnancy loss. So those are some things to look for too, like especially if you're trying to conceive, especially with that asymptomatic part of it too, because as women, we also always beat ourselves up like if you have a miscarriage or something like that. If you don't know you have fibroids and you have a pregnancy loss and you just think, well, something's wrong with me, what could it be? And you don't realize you have fibroids. So stuff like that just to keep an eye on. And you can only know for sure, like, yeah, if you get an ultrasound or MRI, that's how you're going to get diagnosed with both endometriosis and fibroids because they have to see it. There are signs though, obviously, like when you go get your checkups and stuff like that, there's inflammation in that space, and
yeah.
hopefully it's noticed,
Hmm.
It's not always like endometriosis is very difficult to get a diagnosis of because no, because again, you're saying you're telling them your symptoms and they sound just like normal women's symptoms,
Hmm.
but really it's not. And so a lot of women live with those things for years and
Hmm.
they're growing, they're progressing, they're getting more painful, yada yada. So, and yeah, Sarah's right. There's an 80% increase in African American women by the age of 50 to get fibroids.
Hmm.
So it is something to like just know. It's also, of course, there's a genetic aspect of it too. So just thinking about those things, but it will come down to like inflammation in the body too.
And
This is what,
Britt, one thing as you've been talking, a couple of things,
yeah.
thinking about just my past experiences, I'm like, oh, well, I have had lower back pain starting from my 20s, which back
Hmm.
then I wasn't even, lifting or anything. So as I started to lift, my back pain started to get worse. And then even sex sometimes is it's painful. And I know that these are things that they ask you at
Yes.
the doctor's office, but what even sometimes I think when they're asking, I'm just like, oh no, that's fine, it's fine, but really
Right.
like I don't know why I wouldn't just admit like, no, this is an issue. It
Yeah.
shouldn't hurt to have sex, right? So
Yeah, and that's another just fun thing is like, well, we're also taught like it's okay if we're in pain,
Hmm.
so long as they're not, right? Like so it just, oh, like that's normal. And vulvodynia, which is like pain with sex, there's a couple of ways you can have pain with sex, but a burning sensation, irritation, things like that, like on the vulva itself is also a huge symptom, especially with endometriosis too. Like, and then there's like vaginismus. So, in case some of us don't know the anatomy of our down there lady parts, the vulva is the outside part. So when
the
people
cookie,
refer to the vagina, like
The
they're
cookie, the
two
kitty.
different like things. Yeah, the vagina is the entrance there, okay, but the vulva is everything on the outside. So it both can be um, irritated by these these things.
Yeah, yeah. So, but Britt, you were just about to start diving into some of the symptoms being the inflammation part, which is huge for me as well. So, I just wanted you to talk about some of the things you've been helping me with in terms of, how do we know? Because we can talk about diet as well, y'all, but let's save that for another time because I can talk about food with y'all all day. But I think one thing that
Yeah,
is super looked over are the things that I am glittering up in my lotion and my fragrances. So I want to talk
yeah,
about it.
yeah. So inflammation, both fibroids and endo is going to be, you have to look at it as a systemic inflammatory issue. So that means it's just you're living in chronic inflammation, and that can come from so many different places, and diet, lifestyle, habits are one of those things, and that's included. I'd love to dive into the diet topic like more in depth for sure, because our inflammation
Yeah,
can come from our diet very, like that. What we feed ourselves definitely matters.
so
But there are so
much.
many overlooked inflammatory things as well. Stress, sleep, the things we put on and in our bodies, they're huge. Um, so what I've been talking to you about especially is, since I know your diet is pretty cleaned up, we have to think about, okay, what else is causing inflammation? So stress is always going to be top tier for pretty much anything. If you have a dysregulated nervous system, everything is dysregulated. It's cascades into everything underneath it. So stress is something that everyone should be focusing on, and I think that's a whole
Number
topic on its
one.
own. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we can really dive into a lot of nervous system practices and stress regulation and management and that kind of thing.
And
So that's just
sleep.
something. Sleep
Stress
is
and sleep.
absolutely, yep,
Hmm.
they go hand in hand. If you have poor sleep hygiene, your body
Oh,
is always going to be inflamed. I don't know, like when you wake up puffy because of lack of sleep, or, like that's inflammation in the body.
mhm.
Or too much sleep, even honestly, you could get puffy from that too. You want a good amount of sleep.
Yeah.
Um, and it also takes our body a lot longer to recover from one night with a lack of sleep. It will
Mhm.
take, so it also atrophies our muscle. Like that's
Mhm.
when our brain is cleansing itself as well. Our gut's going to work, our body is repairing.
Yeah.
So if we're not repairing and getting that sleep, we're going to stay in that inflammatory state.
My girlies know top of the pyramid, sleep
Hmm.
and stress. That's where it starts.
Yes.
It has
Yep.
to.
That's what I always say. It's like those things up here will cascade into everything underneath it,
Yeah.
period. Like there's no way around it. You have to do both. um,
Hmm.
and then, so there are external environments too. So I always say, like, get rid of toxic people, places, and things. People can cause inflammation in your body, places can, and the things we put on and in our body. So if we go to that space, I'll say anything you're using day to day on your skin, in your bodies. The lotion, it's your body wash, it's your fragrances. Well, they're endocrine disruptors. So that
Hmm.
Mm.
system, your endocrine system, they're going to disrupt that. And that's going to lead to inflammation in the body as well.
Can you remind me of, because I still haven't downloaded it, the app that we should be using to scan our products and really see what level of, um, you know, how
Yes.
really how clean and how safe they are for us?
Yes. So there's a few apps out there now. I like EWG,
Mm-hmm.
and that one's been around for a long time, and it was like I want to say privately funded. Like so they get their funding from people. Like they're not
Oh,
oh, selling, so to speak, like oh, this person's paying you to do a review, right? They are kind of getting that funding themselves, so that makes it a little less
gotcha.
biased, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So it's been around for a long time. They have an app and then they have their website as well, and they have a lot of information on those places. And it's household products, it's fragrances, it's body wash, it's foods. They have everything on there. And they grow and grow and grow and grow. There's another app, and I don't even know how to pronounce it, but I want to say it's called Yucca. That's another big one. I will say the difference in the two, I still prefer EWG. If I am looking at EWG and it's a five and then it's green on Yucca, I'm like,
Ah.
no. And yeah, I don't think that they take into consideration all the things.
Oh,
So yeah, it's
okay.
just I would just be wary. And
Okay.
so I actually do use the two. So if it's not on EWG, I will try the Yucca
Hmm.
because it might be on there, and then I would kind of like see why is it green and what are they missing? Like so if it's like 80% or 85%, I'd say
Got
what's the
it.
15%?
Okay, ladies.
Why is the 15% like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
think that they make, and this is something I just need to research because I love the glitter lotions and the glitter fragrances and all that. Do they make like a body safe, hormone safe, endocrine safe glitter product? Do they exist?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they
Okay.
do
Need to
because
research.
they have come out with a lot of amazing products lately. Like even self tanner. There's like a non-toxic
Mm-hmm.
self tanner out there now.
Okay.
So there are definitely more things I think. And Fallon and I went to the Girl Tivities, and there was this gal there, and she had her what were those creams? Like creams and
Mm-hmm. The body butters.
body butters,
Mm-hmm.
and they were all
Non-toxic.
natural. And she
Oh.
used an all natural like glimmer. What was that? That was really
Mika, I think.
cool.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Was it? Yeah.
So,
Okay.
mhm.
Good to
So it gives like a
know.
nice little shimmer on the skin. So there are definitely ways that you can still get that like that
That
glittery vibe. And
glow. I just love
there's
it.
also a lot of non-toxic perfumes out there, a lot of non-toxic brands coming out, a lot of non-toxic candles coming out as well,
Mm-hmm.
because
Totally. I have heard about
that's your
that.
environment. And that those are pretty intense actually. Like living in um, those candles and fragrances really disrupt your endocrine system.
Mm.
So that's just something to be very mindful of, especially if you're wearing that like day to day or around people day to day or in houses or offices with, that the plugins and things like that. It's just something
Yeah.
to keep in mind.
Oh my
It is
gosh, the
infiltrating your
plugins
system.
too. Yes. Because I have so many fragrances everywhere all the time in my house. So I really want to, and for me, and maybe for our audience too, I know a lot of my girlies are on a budget these days. It does take a little bit more budgeting in terms of like when you're going to go start buying these things. So one thing Britt was advising me, just like start with one thing at a time because they're going to be, at
Hmm.
least for me, they were like more than my regular products. So I was like, ooh,
Hmm.
okay, this week we'll start with the shampoo. I was about to say champagne.
Hmm.
It's Sunday.
Hey,
I'm
I know where your
thirsty.
mind's at. Sunday fun day.
Sunday fun day. And then I can go to the lotion and then I need to find my new glitter. So,
Yes. I just want to second what Britt was saying about EWG too. I've been using them for years and years. I also use an app
oh,
called Think Dirty. Been
think
using that for
dirty.
like 6 years, and I find anything that's not on Think Dirty usually will be on EWG, but I do say, like Britt says, EWG is definitely the GOAT.
Wow,
And
okay.
on that, it's a really cool site where they list like 1 through 10, and everything that's like 1 and 2 is in green. So that's going to be the safe zone. Like 3 to 5 or 6 is like moderate. And then after that, you get into the red, which obviously you want to avoid
Mm,
red. And then you
okay.
want to try your best to avoid anything that's going to be in the yellow. And as far as the glitter, you actually, I recommended one to you, Star, that you use. Kopari is a really good one.
Are they really?
Yeah, they're at like a
Yes, I
1 and
love
2 on
them.
EWG, so they're in the green. Some products are more in the moderate, so you do just gonna have to make sure. But that's a really good clean beauty brand. And like Britt says, like literally everybody's up with the times. The candles, the shampoos, everything. Like you can find non-toxic solutions for almost anything these days.
Hmm.
Amazing. Yeah, because your girl is just your average shop. Like, I'm just like, da, 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 da. But I'm not like that with food. And that's the thing. I'm like,
Hmm.
I'm loving this new beauty self-awareness y'all are bringing me into.
Yeah, you think like our skin is our biggest organ, so anything you put on it is instantly soaking that into your body.
Yeah.
Um, One thing I'll say is if if you are looking at the apps, especially like EWG, I like to stay 2 and below personally. Um, and then seeing why it's the two. Like what is it that's causing it to be a two or a one? Three max. My daughter, obviously, she's a very like skincare, makeup. She likes all the fragrances. She's like,
Mhm.
oh, Billie Eilish, like, this fragrance and that fragrance. I'm like, first of all, you're not allowed to wear that. So I don't know why we're spending $80 on a bottle of perfume, but whatever. Um, but she now has like the apps on her phone and she'll check it. She'll be like, can I get this?
Nice.
It's a two, like, and that kind of thing. So just keeping that and that's important for me. She's gonna be a woman. Has her period. Well, she's gonna, I shouldn't maybe say this, but she's gonna be like, why are you talking about me? She's had consistent pain-free periods this whole time. And I'm
Good
super proud
job,
of that,
Mama.
So,
Woohoo!
and as much as it kind of sucks as a child to not get all those cool brands or whatever, I'm like, these are cool brands. They're just not popular yet. Like you make them popular by sharing that out there because I think it's like, oh, we get this because it's cool, but
Hmm.
it's cooler not to have a painful period. You know
hundred
Exactly.
what I mean?
percent.
Like, in my opinion, but I'm biased, I think. One more quick thing about that stuff too, about the disruptors is we have something called like there's something called xenoestrogens that's in these things. And xenoestrogens act like estrogen in the body. And why this is important for fibroids and endo and anything else hormone related is because again, fibroids have estrogen and progesterone receptors on them. So while they're not estrogen, they act as estrogen in the body and they take up those receptors on the cells.
Okay.
So now you have these things kind of going and they won't come up on blood work. So you can have estrogen dominant like symptoms and it won't come up on blood work. And we'll talk about this tons of times because there's tons of conditions about this. But now think you have your fibroid and you have those receptors on it. And now this fake, estrogen is infiltrating that. It's still going to cause and antagonize that fibroid
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
cell, so it's just another thing to keep in mind that those xenoestrogens are very real, and making sure you're detoxing your body well enough to make sure you're not having ex or living in excess estrogen or those xenoestrogens is going to be helpful too because those will exacerbate those things. Another really important thing I just want to say about both of these things is there is a light at the end of the tunnel, right? It's not just always about surgery. If you have endo and fibroids, yes, surgery might be the thing that you need to do, depending, but they are manageable and often reversible. And when
Yeah.
we get into like more of the endo side of it, I can go into like some really cool statistics about that. But,
Yeah.
there is a light at the end of the tunnel. It just
Mm.
takes a little bit more work, unfortunately, for these conditions. So it might seem like, why can she live like this, but I have to eat this way and I have to not do this and I can't be like that. Like it will be a little bit more difficult, but it is possible. And you can still
Mm-hmm.
have a very beautiful life with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you were saying about, really adjusting our lifestyle and our habits, it's just one more way to learn to live, to be feeling good, to be healthy, happy. And I think that that is a beautiful, beautiful reason to put our intentions into all of this. So, we will
Yes.
be
Yeah.
diving into this even more. I just wanted to kind of open that door as we are starting to meet all of you ladies listening. So excited to share more of our experiences, but also hopefully helping you with your journeys as well.
And I do just
Yeah.
want to say, side note, real quick. I am a big reality TV star fan, die hard for Real Housewives of Atlanta. So if you guys know, you know the OG Sheree Whitfield. The last season she was in, she was actually diagnosed with fibroids.
Oh, I didn't know
She's
that.
older, but she reminds me a lot of you, Star. She's extremely into fitness.
Oh.
Health, all of that, her nutrition, everything's on point. So
Mm,
she was kind of really taken back when she found out that she had fibroids because she's like, I work out 6 days a week, I eat as
mhm,
clean as I can, I'm always active. Like, why is this? And then again, the statistic came into play with her as well.
mhm,
And the doctor did recommend surgery, and she was like, absolutely not. I'm not doing this surgery. Like, we're finding natural ways for me to do this.
mm,
So she was starting to be more aware of like foods and things that are more like concentrated to having fibroids and to help fibroids. And she actually started doing a lot of acupuncture, and she swears by the
Ah.
acupuncture. She says it changed the game for her. And then she kept saying like, I like these fibroids aren't going to take me down. Like, I'm going to work out. I'm going to live my
Yes.
life. Like, she was very hardcore on it. And fast forward to, I can't remember the exact time frame, but she went to the doctor, and the doctor was like, "You don't need surgery anymore. They all shrunk." And she's like, "Hell yeah!"
Oh my
So it
gosh.
it
Get
works,
it,
ladies. You
girl.
take care of yourselves.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Thank you for that. I love reality TV
Yeah.
too.
Let's hold on to that too because I'll have some things about that as well. Like acupuncture is great for nervous system dysregulation, or yeah, nervous system regulation, I should say. And working out excessively, things like that is still a stress on the body and can still
Mm-hmm.
cause systemic inflammation. So those are things that we think are like, oh, well, these things are so healthy. We're doing such a great job. And they are. So I don't want anyone to think like, oh, we're doing something wrong because those things are healthy. But if you are, either genetically predisposed or just wrong place, wrong time internally, that inflammation can cause any of these things at any point in life. So it's
Mhm.
just another thing to think about. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't think that, I think many of us think we're doing something wrong, but we think we're doing something right.
Mm-hmm.
You are doing everything right. With the information you have, you're living your life as healthy as you can with the information you have. And that specifically, if you repeat that out loud, makes a difference because you don't know until you know.
If you know, you
You know what I
know.
mean? Yeah, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're living in this place of I'm eating well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but you don't know that this or that can cause this and this and that is causing that, then you know what I mean? Like it's not your fault.
Hmm.
And that's why
Love
we're
it.
super grateful for Brit. Everyone needs a wellness bestie. Go get you one.
Love it, ladies. Well, thank you again. We will be diving into this, I'm sure, more and more. And we have so much more we want to go into on topics
Mhm.
like these. But just thank you for listening and tuning in.
We would love to know if any of these symptoms stood out to you. If so, which ones? You can comment below or you can send us a DM at Three-Way Call Pod on Instagram.
Dial into our next episode. Thank you so much for being here. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, praise be.